Okay, part 8 of lesson 16 is what happens when things aren't running like we expect them to do. So, on this lesson, we're going to use a debug command to try and find the things that go wrong. So, when we run the code, it allows us to, just like the very first lesson, move this tack around, and we want it to pop the balloon. Whoa, it popped way too soon. So, what we have to do is we can go in the code below and we can change the balloon.debug false to balloon.debug equal true. So, if we look in our code, and I scroll down a little bit. Oof. Okay. Sorry, it's a little laggy when I'm doing it this way. Okay, we want balloon.debug to equal true. Okay, so now when we run true and we reset it, what's happening that you can't see yet is down in this debug console, we could look at things, but it also shows us the borders of our sprites. Well, look at where the border of the balloon is. It's way out here. Okay? It's giant. We don't want it to be that big. Well, maybe it's not just the balloon, maybe it's the tack as well. So we're going to do that same thing. We're going to put a debug under tack. So here we're going to type tack.debug equals true. And it will give us another block for the tack, and we can see exactly what's going on. So what this is doing is sometimes when we create sprites, we don't realize the edges of the sprite's boundaries we're creating. So now you can see the tack has a really tight boundary, but the balloon doesn't. So when we run it and move, it pops much sooner than we wanted. Now, the idea would be then that you were supposed to talk with your partner and figure it out. Well, unfortunately, in our current circumstances, we can't talk as a partner. When we do the Zoom later, we'll be able to. But for now, what I'm going to show you is that you can go inside your animation, and when you look at the balloon image that they have, you'll see that this border is much bigger than it needs to be. So really what we can do is we can resize this whole thing, and we don't want to resize the content. We want to center it, and we can make it much smaller. I'm going to make it 150, and by 203. When I resize it, that's not perfect, but it will be tighter. I'm going to do it a little bit. I'll try to fix it a little more. Let's make it 125. Resize it. Pretty good. Let's go down to 100. When I resize it now, the balloon fills the entire screen. Now it gets cut off a little bit here, but for our purposes, that works. Now when we go back to our code and run it, we'll still have the debug, and you can see that the box right over there, the box around the balloon is much smaller. So now when we move the tack, it has to get much, much closer to the balloon before it will pop. And that's what we want it to do. So this debug command is really nice because sometimes when things aren't working like you expect them to do, you can put a debug in there and see what's actually going on, and you can change it to work properly.